There we go. And PA? Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine right here.
Okay, so, oh, there we go. All right, now it's on. Good evening, everyone. Time being 5:49, I would like to call the Economic Development Subcommittee meeting on May 4th, 2022 to order. This is a steering committee meeting, so it's an EDC Plus meeting. A note to residents, all citizens are welcome to attend public board and committee meetings in person. Additionally, in an effort to maximize citizen engagement opportunities, citizens will be able to continue to participate remotely via phone or Zoom. The meetings will also be live streamed by Franklin TV and shown on Comcast 11 and Verizon Channel 29. The link to access the meeting for May 4th, 2022 is on the agenda. Or you can copy and paste the URL into your browser, or you can call in 1-929-205-6099, enter the meeting number, ID number 832-6773-2576, and then press pound. Tonight in chambers, we have Councilor Sheridan, Councilor Frangillo, and Councilor Jones, along with Bruce Hunchard from the ZBA and Greg Rondo from the Planning Board. On Zoom is Beth Whaling from the Planning Board. So tonight's agenda number one is just basically a discussion. I think the last time we met in these chambers, we had a lot of discussion, we looked at the survey data, we had the data about the MBTA community. We were asked a lot of questions, and it felt to me like we didn't have enough time to look at that data and think about it. And so what I wanted to do tonight is just basically take a breath and before we step off into the next phase of this project, to have people here if they want to ask questions. The steering committee would like to ask questions, or if they have comments. Do you think we're going in the right direction? What do you think if we need to do anything else? Between the last time we met and tonight, my dad was at home, and he slowly lost all of his strength, and he passed away, and I think that I just needed to take a break and for everyone to have a moment to be able to make sure that we're all on the same page. So with that, did you want to say anything to Jamie, or no?
No,
Okay. I don't.
Just really quickly, Madam Chair, it's a good pause in the project. I think we're roughly about halfway through. I know Emma and the team there are probably putting a lot of work into the recommendations in the report. But I think you articulated to me one point, which is the board, the steering committee rather, has never really had time for a dialogue amongst yourselves about, where this is going. Are there things that jump out at everybody already? And so I think it was a good call to have one of these sessions. So I'm happy to obviously answer any questions folks have.
Okay, thank you, Jamie.
Melanie, is Emma gonna speak tonight? I mean, is she gonna give us one of them Supreme Court?
No, so there's no.
Look, sees it, what are you gonna do?
Thank you, Bruce.
You didn't get the leaked document, Bruce?
Supreme Court.
So there's no presentation from Emma and the team tonight. This is really time for us to talk to each other, to think about if there's anything different that we would like to happen going forward. And one of the things that I think about a lot is that we don't really have time to process the data. We don't get it beforehand. I think we're all kind of used to having it at least two days ahead of time to be able to read through it. I think we'd be able to then come up with questions, and it might make it more efficient for us. But that's kind of my main feeling about it. I don't know does anybody want to comment or have a question about how do you feel things are going? I can call on people, or we can just have a free, this is just kind of like, I just want people to feel free to talk about it. I know Beth already has her hand up, so why don't we go to Beth? Okay.
Just a quick timeline question. So I think, is it the 16th, we have our next forum over at the Black Box, correct?
Yes.
So at the Black Box, it is, I guess, I understand that MAPC will present to us, that's in 2 weeks, or a little over a week and a half, I guess, their recommendations for zoning. And tonight, we have about, 45 minutes to get all our questions and things in?
Yep.
Could be comments too.
It could be comments. It doesn't have to be
Ideas.
questions.
Questions?
Ideas, just,
So for me,
Yeah.
I guess, in my opinion, it just seems really quick. I just don't know as though, how do we get that all done? It's, a lot of feedback has gone into this, and, you know, how we're reviewing things that are going to be presented to the public in a week and a half, I mean, it just seems quick to me. I'd like to know what's being talked about, what's going to be presented before we put it out there in the public and say, here's what we're recommending. How do we review everything and give our comments and fairly review everything in a week and a half? We're just now on the 4th of May having our public, you know, our discussion here about what we think about things, and all the information that's been gathered over the course of the last few months.
okay, thank you for your input. I think,
Melanie, what's the idea of the 16th?
hold on a
Excuse
second.
me.
Bruce is,
See, I got you
Bruce,
laughing.
Bruce. I'm gonna have to move Bruce, because this makes me laugh. But I think Amy's gonna answer that for you, Bruce, but that's a
I'm
great
sorry,
question.
If I knew you were going to speak.
If you don't mind,
Mel, I didn't quite hear what Bruce had said. Could you repeat
No,
that
it's just
out
a
here?
Here,
Oh, I'm sorry. It was just a joke, that's all.
he wanted to know what the forum is gonna be about and what the purpose of the forum is that's coming up
Yeah.
at the Black
I
Box.
think that's a valid question as well.
yeah, if you don't mind,
And Amy's gonna answer it.
yeah, I'm gonna try to do my best here. So it's the second public forum, to engage the public with, some of these, results that have come out, and also there will be high-level recommendations for some of the zoning changes. So based on, they are working on a draft right now, so it's in the works, as far as some of the recommendations that are gonna come through, and that we will get to the steering committee prior to the public forum on, May 16th. But it's also to gather the feedback from their recommendations as well. That's why it's important that we get them out there. We've taken a lot of input here, so it's input, you know, from the survey, from the other public forum, from our focus groups. So we're also including all of this within, you know, coming up with these recommendations. So there will be, MAPC will be presenting some high-level recommendations at the public forum and gathering feedback. Tonight, we were hoping to get kind of feedback from the steering committee if things are going in the right direction. And is there anything more important to look at in one area than another? Is there any specific zoning you're hoping for or not hoping for? So, and whatever else, you know, you'll have to comment about it.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Does that answer your question, Bruce?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
It's going to be another 3 hours sit down at the dentist chair. Another drill.
So the meeting is high. It's
No.
hybrid.
That was like the other one, so I might actually go to that one, but I'd be embarrassed if I fell asleep. We're going to be in the front or in the back? You know?
You're
in the front.
you'll be in
You're
the
gonna be on
front.
stage.
You'll be in the front. I think Greg has a question.
Could I comment on that? I think Bruce, you know, people have taken a lot of time and effort into this, and while it might seem like a waste of time, it is nice to have the comments come in and value people's opinions, even if they're different than all of ours. And, you know, it is a lot of work, and it's a lot of work for the staff, it's a lot of work for MAPC, it's a lot of time out of people's busy schedules, and, you know, sorry, Bruce, but I just think that was a little not necessary.
That's how it felt to me. Just wanted to let you know.
Okay, you guys. All right. Greg has a question.
It's more in terms of proximity of the areas that we want to target.
Yeah.
I think potentially the outskirts is
No,
what
put your mic closer to
I
you.
think the outskirts is what we'd be aiming for, more so much than places that haven't been developed yet per se. Like, we're gonna be seeing potentially Stobits and other places like that coming up. I think those particular parcels could be looked at as well. I know there is some requirements for the downtown that they're looking for some housing, but it sounds like on the survey, people weren't looking for a whole lot of housing in the downtown. Or the rezoning of it, I mean, it's just what I kinda get out of it, I think maybe we look at distances and plan for the future, and, you know, maybe, I just don't know, have we met the housing criteria yet, that approximately 1,800 units, has anybody determined that yet?
I think
And
that
I
we
mean,
could
we
get
have-
an answer to that.
we have projects coming on board right now
Yeah.
that are in front of the planning board, and we have projects that just got approved and getting approved, so those are gonna probably count towards some of this potentially too, so I think the downtown's gonna see its share of growth. I think the outskirts could be the areas that we look at.
So you, just to clarify it for me,
Yeah.
you'd like to see us think about further down, like,
East and west.
east-west
Yep.
Central Street a
Yeah,
little
a
bit,
little bit more.
outside of the
Yep.
outside.
Just because there's some parcels that haven't been, built on yet, and I think those are the ones that we could take a peek at. That's all.
Okay, I think,
Just
I
a
think
thought.
Brian knows the answer to the,
I was just gonna point that out. Brian made a presentation at the council meeting, one of your meetings,
Yes.
not long ago. And I guess the way I heard him say it, it's not gonna be hard to check the box for the density in the area that they're talking about, correct?
we're gonna have Brian come up and answer it.
Brian, you can sit at the table next to Amy.
No, I'm sorry.
What's that say?
We're here to listen to you tonight, so
Yeah.
that's okay. Brian Spurn, Director of Planning and Community Development. As far as the MBTA community requirements, I think we could fairly easily change some of where we allow a special permit for multifamily if you allow up to 15 units by right in those areas. You could almost immediately meet the MBTA requirements for that. For instance, in C1 and General Residential 5, you already meet it in the downtown commercial zone.
Right.
So you could easily do that, but is that what's gonna happen? That really is not for me to say. We could
Mhm.
end up with a totally different scenario by the time you're done.
Right.
Okay, so, and as far as going up and down East and West Central, you know, we set the scope of work for MAPC in, you know, basically go 2 miles out maybe from the ground down, but that's even that's far out, you know, so really the focus was the downtown commercial and adjacent neighborhoods essentially.
Right.
In that area there. So, yeah, so you talk about Stobarts or whatever, that's well outside the scope of work. It doesn't mean that people can't comment and provide input on things like that, but it is outside their scope, and if they end up mentioning anything like that in the report, fine, but I don't think it's obviously not gonna be their prime recommendations to do things in those areas, because they're focused on the downtown core and surrounding neighborhoods.
Right. Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Brian. Oh, James got something.
Jamie?
Cool.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To Brian's point, just one quick follow-up. So it's not part of the study, because it was a concentrated area, but that does not, this study is just like all the other studies we've done on markets and various things in the last couple of years. It doesn't hinder at all this committee or the EDC or the council or the planning board from doing any zoning changes in town The concern we heard leading up to now was really about downtown. And there may be a scenario where we do check a majority of the boxes that the state's looking for, maybe tweak a few things to check off a couple more boxes, and then maybe we do have to look at other areas of town, and that's okay. And maybe the recommendations that come out in the report may be applicable to other areas outside the study zone as well. So I just wanted to add those thoughts in there. We're not restricted to downtown zoning changes. It's just the area of focus for right now.
Thank you, Jamie. That's what I wanted to say, but my brain wouldn't let me say it, so thank you. Thank you for that.
Great minds think alike.
Yeah, I think we can use the information we glean in this study for those other spots that Greg would like to see us look at next. So, Kobe.
Yeah, thank you. I don't want to lose sight of the larger picture. What's frustrated me about the focus on the MBTA Communities Act is it's become about checking a state box, which loses fact of the idea that we actually brought this forward before that was law, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a beneficial project to Franklin. Rezoning our downtown is beneficial to Franklin, and that's what we're here about. The state happens to agree with us at this point, but I'm less concerned with what their thoughts are, and I'm more concerned about why this is a good project for Franklin. The reason why we're focused on the downtown and focusing on building our density out from the middle out is because it is better for the town's finances, first and foremost. There are other benefits, but every time we build out new infrastructure for houses, those new buildings don't pay for that infrastructure build out. If we want, this is how we have a $40 million back road and road maintenance, and an even larger backlog of pipe and other infrastructure maintenance. If we want to right the ship of town finances, we need to grow in places where infrastructure already exists and where we get high return on investment per acre, per piece of infrastructure. That's true in our downtown. In fact, our downtown is the only place that is in the net positive in terms of us getting more back for amount of money that we spend on infrastructure. The reason for focusing on the downtown is because it's better for Franklin. Now, that's the starting point. There are residual benefits around improving walkability, improving commercial downtown and a vibrant downtown that we all get to enjoy, improving the sustainability, lowering greenhouse gas emissions of town, improving accessibility, housing, diverse housing choices and housing near transit so you can live without owning a car, without taking as many trips on a car, or you can live in smaller units and be able to access the downtown so that young people and old people can still afford to live in our town. There are a whole bunch of other benefits, but the reason why we're focusing on the town and wanting to push for just allowing one more step out of what's currently allowed downtown is because it's beneficial for Franklin. I don't want to lose sight of the positives of the project by focusing on what the state's asking us to do.
Okay. So do you think, how do we make sure that we do that?
So my proposals, and I was happy that they asked us, and this is what I think we're all somewhat coming to in agreement on, is there are certain pieces that we love about Franklin. There are certain, the mixed use downtown, all of those buildings that have, commercial on the bottom, that go right up to the street, that aren't overrun by parking, that have housing above it. Those are beautiful pieces that we all love about Franklin. All those side streets with these gorgeous homes that are duplexes or triplexes or 5 or sometimes even 9 units that are beautiful. All of these exist in Franklin already, and they're all most of our favorite places around Franklin, none of that is currently allowed by right. And I think starting by allowing those things that we all enjoy, having them be allowed by right is where we'd start. And then can we allow it to just breathe one more step? If we just allow the next level of density in those areas, it doesn't disrupt the neighborhood character that so many are concerned of. But it allows more housing diversity downtown. It allows more people to walk downtown, and it keeps those places vibrant and prosperous, and has better return on for the town.
Okay, I wanted to know how you thought we could actually make sure that we stay focused on the good things, like what do we need to say to people? But I mean, we can't say it as passionately as you just did, which is like would be really nice if I could, but.
I think there are
I'm
lots.
serious though. I mean, I think Kobe makes a valid point, and he's very passionate about it, and he wants what's best for Franklin. We all live in Franklin. We all want the best thing. So we do we do lose our focus sometimes, and so maybe we need to try to refocus, like, right? Patrick has a,
Well, maybe focus on walkability, and instead of having businesses where people just drive in, pick up a thing, drive out, have a place, you go downtown, you park, you get something to eat, you go to the bookstore. Or you park in my neighborhood, and you walk downtown for the day. Something like that. I mean, focus on walkability, because I live downtown, I love walking around.
Yeah.
I always love walking the post office, walking the church, walking everything, so. And walkability is a big thing, it helps better for people's health, cuts down the carbon. And I would like to see something about focusing on the stores being right up to the street, like. Because I just walked by the Rome, I noticed that burnt down in the 90s, I think. And they did a good job, they built up the street. Imagine if that was pushed back with the parking lot in front, that looks nice the way it is.
yeah.
And same thing with Simon's too, Simon's expanded, but they kept the front part looking, instead of moving out to 140 or something like that.
So you mean
Hundred
that there's not just to the street, but there's a sidewalk?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like if you think of the,
You want the parking in the back?
yeah, if you think of like the Horace Mann Plaza, it's unfortunate they didn't make that more up in the street, and have the park in the back, or, so you get people walking the sidewalk. Not to pick a different town, but like Bellingham, I went to Bellingham downtown once, like nobody walks on the sidewalk. I took the kids to Dairy Queen, they went across the street, I thought, like, nobody walks it, we just drive through like crazy. And the sidewalks are in bad conditions, obviously nobody walks around downtown Bellingham.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. Counselor Jones?
I wish there was a family-friendly movie theater downtown that everybody could go to and see small shows at.
We had one.
Oh, that's right.
Same with the ice creams.
That would have
I
been
think,
a great attraction to have downtown.
3-in-1.
But, look, I've listened and heard pretty much what everyone has to say in regards to these changes in the zoning, and I understand how passionate everyone is about making these types of changes. But really what this boils down to is coming up with some collective ideas that we could all agree on, that we can all agree upon, sitting down with the property owners and coming up with some plans as to how we want to move the downtown forward. I live downtown. It's down a block from the library. I walk through it every single day. I walk my dog, walk with my wife, and my kids. It is currently a beautiful place to work,
yes.
as is, minus the Zoetrope. But, little things that we can add and change as we go along. From a council perspective, I think everybody needs to take into consideration the simple fact that our ability to change things lies in our ability to change zoning. We don't have the ability to twist people's arms into doing anything they really don't want to. I mean, it's
That's
been
right.
multiple times. I was chairman of economic development for years. I've spoken with many of the business owners downtown as well as the property owners. And really what it boils down to is, what are we going to do as a community to benefit those who have the ability to make those changes. And
Yeah.
work with them. That's really what I would like to see come out of this, is like,
Okay.
all the ideas are great, and everyone's opinion is absolutely valid, and I really don't want to invalidate anyone's thoughts and opinions on something, but really what this boils down to is coming up with one idea. See, the problem is, I think everyone's kind of thinking too big. We need to kind of micro pick this. You know, the analogy I like to use is Times Square in New York City. Times Square in New York City back in 1978 was one of the largest combat zones there was in the United States, until one business moved in, and that was the Disney Store. And it started to grow, and it started to grow, and it started to grow. Really what it boils down to is enticing the right types of business to attract the people to the area, to make it more walkability. That's on us, right? And then just add to the ambiance of the downtown, so ultimately it attracts more people. That's really what it boils down to. But we can't do any of that without having a collaboration and a cooperative with the property and the business owners of the downtown. It's just that simple.
What other businesses would you
Well-
suggest, Glenn, other than?
That's a good question.
Theater,
That-
you know, what I mean,
that's- no,
we've
no,
had,
absolutely
since I've lived in Franklin, which is a pretty long time, we've
Yeah.
had grocery stores. We've
Yeah.
had 3 grocery stores in the downtown.
Yeah.
There's a Stop and Shop and A&P in
Yeah,
Bargettsburg.
wasn't
We-
Star Market downtown at one point too?
I don't think so.
No?
No.
I thought it was.
I can tell you what we got a lot less of now than we had before downtown is bar rooms. We had a few more bar rooms downtown than what exist currently now. We had the hardware store, I think it was a Firestone store or something like that.
Hey,
We had another hardware store that went into like where the old Stop and Shop was, where Berry Insurance is. We had J.J. Newberry's was there.
Newberry's was there for years.
Well, I had to remind Jamie, actually was a resident in town one time.
I was hoping you were gonna give me a chance to redeem myself,
Well, I
but
think.
you're still poking at me.
No, he wasn't even born. He wasn't even born.
I don't think this is really about what types of businesses. It's more about the types of buildings that can get built in the town, in the center of town. Councilor Frangillo made an excellent point when he said that the things that we love are not, we cannot be built because it's not by right. So I think those are the changes we should be looking at and focusing on, that's what we can do. Like,
That's what we're here for.
that's why we're here. We can, like, that's what this is about, right? So,
Well, the chairman of the plan board's here, you can tell.
can I, well, Jamie was gonna have, he was like looking
Oh,
at,
Beth's
then we'll
got a
go
hand
over
up.
to,
Yeah, yeah,
we'll
Beth's
go over
got
to
a
Greg,
hand up.
and then Beth's gonna, yeah. Jamie,
I was just gonna say, I think, Madam Chair, I think at some point, to that point, you know, when the report comes out, which will have a lot of information, it'll take a long time to digest, this steering committee may wanna just kind of define the problems, right? And then maybe some goals and achievable goals to define those problems. Affordable housing is a little bit getting lost in a lot of this, which is what the state incentivized, and I respect the opinion that we shouldn't necessarily do, we're not just gonna do what the state necessarily wants us to do. Just because they want us to do it doesn't mean it's the right thing for Franklin. But affordable housing was really generally one of the issues that has always been spoken about downtown. And I think the types of businesses that we're attracting to downtown has also been a problem. And then I think maybe the group, down the road can just talk about those things, maybe to help focus the conversation, so we're not necessarily going off into all these tangents about what people want. That, I mean, a movie theater would be really cute, it is doable, but it's a long trek to get an investor to put in a movie theater. I don't know if people would go. I don't know how many movie theaters exist anymore. And so that may or may not be something that we could do or we couldn't do. But I do think that at some point, we're gonna have to, as a group, for Franklin, define what is the problem, what are the goals we're trying to achieve, and try to apply the solutions to that problem and those goals. Because everybody's alluded to this. This is it's a very dense and very thick topic. I mean, it can be construed in a lot of different ways, so, just a couple thoughts. Thank you, Madam Chair.
okay, thank you, Jamie. Greg, you wanted to,
Should have Amy had a hand up.
I just wanna take Glenn's point a little farther, like, I think at one point somebody spoke about tax incentives, like trying to get businesses downtown. Do we promote like a tax incentive to try to clean up some of the buildings that are downtown? Therefore, people would probably potentially try to move in. I know the rents are high from what I hear, but if we make it a little more attractive, you may get those one or two businesses that wanna start moving in there downtown, and you start revitalizing it that way too. So, I mean, that could be another alternative, way of approaching it too.
Yeah, that's a good point to think of incentivizing people. Like, it's also like about affordable housing. It's about how do we make the buildings, like, at different areas look the way we want. And we might have to give somebody some credit for that, right? So I think that's, I think that is definitely a great idea too. I'm gonna go to Beth.
Thanks, Mel. So I didn't really hear what Greg said, but was he talking about incentives for putting affordable housing?
No, for cleaning up like, businesses, storefronts, trying to
Okay.
get the property owners involved, like Glenn was saying, the EDC's had problems with them, so.
Sure.
And kinda get them to the table that way, it may,
Okay.
they may think differently.
Gotcha. So Mel, I guess you were asking earlier, what are some things that we would like to see out of this? For me, in our downtown specifically, I'd like to see what a density would look like. What does it mean if you're going to have 15 units, per acre? How does that lay out in our current downtown? So if we were to say on one of the side streets here, want to put a building in between two houses or something, how would that lay out and how would that impact the abutters? So what would that look like for that density in, say, Dean Ave or on School Street or something to that effect, if somebody bought up a lot and wanted to put up a building? How would that look? I'd also like to see what people envision the height in our downtown looking like. So I've seen a lot of people reference how much they love the old-fashioned look of the postcards that people have been finding around town. And when I look at those postcards and people comment saying, oh, I love how that looks, look at those storefronts, I notice one specific thing is that those storefronts are not 5-story tall, they're 1 or 2 stories tall. So do people love the look of the 1 or 2 story tall buildings, or do they really want to see in our downtown 4 and 5 stories, which seems to be coming across in discussions about first floor retail, second, third, fourth floor with, apartments and business and office space. So what is it that they love about that old tone downtown feel? The storefronts in the 1 story, 2 stories, or a vision for the future of a really tall downtown? What is that? And how does that change our downtown if we do have 4 or 5 stories? And if it is, as Councilor Frangillo mentioned, something that he wants to see our downtown zoning all by right, and if something is 4 or 5 stories tall, what does that mean? What are we changing? How are the shadows going to look? What is our new downtown going to look like? Just curious about that. Things are different in today's day and age versus when those old time postcards happened. There's a lot of big box stores, a lot of businesses that don't come into downtown anymore. So how do you draw those kind of businesses to us? How do we get that feel, and how do we make those businesses, instead of wanting to go to a big box for your videos or go to a bookstore, come downtown now? How do we get our Franklin Downtown Partnership and more involved to, which is a wonderful resource for our businesses and our planning office? How do we get the resources for them to be able to participate and be more active in promoting the spaces that are downtown and support them? Those are the things I'd like to see. I think that's super important in this process.
Okay, Beth, I think I agree that it would be nice to see that those are like really good ideas for modeling. Like, this is what a 4-story by right would look like if everybody redid. I think is that what you mean?
Yeah. How does that look in our downtown? It just is really impactful to see what it looks like. You might think you're going to like that, but are you really going to want a downtown full of 5-story buildings?
Right, I think Counselor Frangillo wanted to respond to you.
I just want to make it clear that we're in somewhat agreement that 4 or 5, they asked for the recommendations, and 2 to 3 stories is the current look that we have, and I think that where we should continue to move forward, and we should only ever go higher is if we're going to, at this point, if we're going to get something back for, affordability or some other incentive. I would push back. I think you would be hard pressed to find many examples where in the old postcards where we had 1-stories that are now multiple stories. I think most of the changes were 2 to 3-story buildings that are now 1-story buildings, or more often now parking lots or parking lots in front or vacant
Sure.
lots. So I agree that anything above 3 stories would be departing from the view. I think we're looking at different postcards if somehow going to 1-story
problem.
is better matching.
No, I'm
history.
just curious. I mean, I just, whether it's 1 or 2 or 3 stories, just curious because I haven't really heard what people are actually envisioning. I've heard some people, developers say they want 4 stories or 5 stories. I've heard some people say, 2 stories or 3 stories, but what is it? What is the magic number and what does it look like?
I think that is why we're doing this, right? To find out what the magic number is, to have models made so we can see. And personally, I don't like the idea of a five floors unless it's, as Councilor Frangillo said, unless maybe it has affordable housing in it, or it's in a certain spot where it won't shadow other things. Maybe there's a green space beside it, I'm not gonna assume that I know what everybody on the board, on the steering committee thinks. But they can chime in if they were thinking of 4 or 5 stories if they want. Councilor Jones?
Look, we can set the zone. We can.
Sorry, Glenn, we can't hear you at home if you could talk a little louder.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Thanks.
We can set the zoning. We already currently have it up to 5 stories by special permit.
Right, I know that.
Anyways, but like anything, everything always boils down to marketability. People have to build these buildings. Buildings cost a lot of money to build. Somebody's not going to go investing into a multi-story building without the promise of some kind of a return. It's just that simple.
Yeah.
It's nice to make these things attractive to people, but as attractive as we can make them as a community, it really boils down to what the resaleability of anything is that's built. I mean, really, what's its purpose? What's its purpose? B, what's the ultimate goal? Meaning, is it going to be mixed use with condos, or is it going to be a community center, or is it going to be businesses? Right? And 3, what's the person going to benefit from who's going to ultimately put all that money and resources into making something like that? Because
Right.
one of the things that the downtown has a difficult time doing is promising those who are downtown consistent business that will ultimately help grow their pockets, because really that's what this boils down to, is trying to create an atmosphere where the people who are building the buildings are reaping enough benefits that they continue to invest into these types of properties. So, I mean, where does it start? We start by making these things available, incentivizing ways for them to do these things if they so choose to do so, and then get some community feedback as to what ultimately we would like to do, what we would like to see, and its goal and its ultimate purpose is. I mean, that's really what this boils down to. I mean, one of the things that I was just looking at on my phone is that Clark University, that's a building at Clark University, that's a 5-story multi-use alumni building that they built. That's all glass. It's glass columns. It's got beautiful banners on it, and it's packed into a really tight space that is immediately across the street from a building that dates back to 1897. You know, it's kind of a combination mixed, you've got old and new mixed together, and it is a multi-story building for the purposes of their alumni and their students. But it's just a classic example of how we just want to be careful not to limit ourselves. Because by saying, okay, we want things to be 2 stories to try to keep that nostalgic perspective of the downtown, that's all nice. But are we really thinking like the city that we are? I mean, we're a major city with a major college in it that itself wants to grow. And what we do has not only an impact on the community as a whole, but has an impact on Dean College, which in and of itself brings quite a few resources to the community. So we have to think big picture here and stop thinking little town. We're not little town Franklin anymore. We're a big city. We need to start thinking like a city.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Madam Chairman, if I may, point of order.
Who is it? Can you state your name and address?
Rick Saccone, Chestnut Street, ma'am.
Okay, Rick.
Glenn, I apologize for interrupting you.
No worries, sir.
I just wanted to mention something that's been an ongoing thing for quite some time. Your microphone, Glenn, is terrible.
My
It
microphone's
comes in and
brand
out.
new.
Well, I'm sorry, but if you were at home listening on TV, I can hear you perfectly through my telephone. Now, how this works, I don't know. But when I listen to it on the television at home, Glenn comes in and out, in and out, in and out. One of the speakers where, there's a couple of speakers in the room where it's totally broken up, so you just can't follow the meeting. But that's for, I mean, again, I spoke to this last meeting I was at. I spoke to the gentleman in the sound room, and he was going to talk to Franklin TV about it, but it doesn't seem like it's been addressed because it continues. If I may, on the downtown, while I have the floor, I can tell you one thing that was important to the downtown in the good times, and that was we had a police department that was in the downtown. We had police officers on foot. We had police officers in front of the folks, making the town seem friendly, welcoming, and those were the days, I guess I'll say, for those old guys like us and me and Bruce and others in that room that remember those days, the days of the A&P and Newberries and such. I, for one, and many of my senior friends, would love to see the police station in the old school building, where we had the police close to the downtown and welcoming our downtown folks. And then at that time, and I know there's a lot, it's not looked at under a lot of people's light that it's a good place for the police station. They'd like to see it as affordable housing. I'm not against that, but I do think it'd be better as a beautiful $30 million police station rather than out in the outskirts somewhere. Then using that as a cornerstone to your new downtown projects that a lot of you folks want to see happy, Colby and others, and I get it. You want to save our downtown, I get it. I just hope that going forward that school building will be considered as a police station and that it will work towards welcoming people to our 140 school district, and you'll save your downtown. You'll get the best of both. Thank you for listening to one man's opinion, and good luck to what you're trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. That was, thank you for your opinion. That was good. I have, let's see, Councilor Frangillo, you want to?
I was just going to get back to process, if I could.
Yes.
So it's my understanding that MAPC at this forum is essentially presenting the steering committee recommendations in a public forum that allows, but my lens of it is that we've hired out MAPC to give the steering committee recommendations, and then we, EDC, takes what they've said, develops it, and passes on our recommendation to the council. Council passes that on to planning board back to council, and then we move forward from there. But the recommendations from MAPC, I just want to make it clear / get confirmation that that's not what's being passed on to the council on behalf of EDC. That's being passed on to us to then iterate on it before passing on our recommendations.
Yes.
Short and sweet.
Right, so, I think the MAPC will put together, that we're gonna do, Amy will will give us another description about what the forum is gonna be like, but I envision it as, they wanna say, these are like some big ideas, what does everybody think about it? And then we get more that gets added to the recommendations, or maybe they get, changed a little bit and organized a little bit differently, so then we get it to look at, to then decide what we think we can do to the EDC, and we work on that, and then we bring it to the council.
Great.
But maybe Amy could give us a little more information about what the forum and when it is, and how people can join it and all that fun stuff.
Sure, thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, so the forum is May 16th. The doors open at 6 at the Black Box. It will start at 6:30. It is a hybrid format, so you can go on Franklin for All and register, we're trying to get kind of a head count if you're going to be on Zoom or if you're going to be in person. But it is open to anybody, even if you don't register. So we do hope to see a lot of people there that can provide feedback. MAPC will be presenting. They'll be presenting overview of some of the zoning recommendations that they will be recommending for the town in a draft format. And from that, they'll take feedback from the public that night as well, to kind of put together something more final, and have the steering committee review it.
Okay. Does that sound good? Yeah?
Amy, is Emma gonna actually be there this time, or is she still gonna be on Zoom?
She will be there.
Okay, thank you.
She'll be there.
That's good. That'll be good. Greg?
When do we expect the packets? There's a lot of information to go through prior to the meeting. Do we expect them within 3 or 4 days, or?
Oh, I didn't hear anybody saying we were getting a packet.
Well, we,
I missed that
I think,
part.
I think it's
I
one of
think
the things we would like to be able to have the information,
It'd be good to have
to be able
prior
to,
that,
to,
if possible,
yeah.
or a good chunk.
Well,
of it.
whatever they compiled out of the,
Yeah,
they already gave us something
Right.
like that once
some of it,
already.
yeah.
Right, so,
I just didn't know if there was any additional information we would be cautious of, that's all.
yeah, you'll be receiving some information, prior to the meeting, probably mainly along the lines of what's gonna be presented that night, so you know what's gonna be presented that night from the recommendations.
Mhm.
Melanie, just
Yeah.
one other thing, if we're getting into concepts. There's gotta be a way to streamline the process, in my opinion. It's great that you can have commercial on the first floor, second, third, fourth, whatever you want, you can have apartments, but you need a special permit. If you got a developer coming in, the developer's gonna say, geez, I can go to, I don't know if we'd wanna go to Medway or Bellingham, whatever, but they could go to another town and they
Yeah.
could say, hey, look at, we can do this over here, we can build a 4-story building. As long as we got commercial on the first floor, we can build residential on the top, and we don't have to go through the process. Because, the planning board takes it as a fact that, well, we gotta give you a special permit, so you have to do exactly what we say. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but, it slows down the process quite a bit.
I agree with you.
There's an example right on East Central Street of how slow the process has been working, so, because of the special permit criteria.
I agree with you, and I think that was one of the,
That was a single family lot too, so.
that was, but that's a planning board thing, you guys. I think that was one of the questions that, we answered at the very beginning of this process, was like, what would you like to see? And I think a lot of people said we'd like the process to be easier and streamline it. And I think that should be a focus. And thank you for agreeing with me.
I agree with you all the time. You've never heard me call and say I disagree with you.
Never.
But just,
You don't call me. No, actually, it's okay. It's okay, you guys.
but just for one point.
Yeah.
On the, planning board side.
Yep.
Special permit will help the neighboring houses, the people, and everybody in that general area with special permit. That's one way to control it, actually, so you don't
Greg,
get a
can you-
5-story
Greg,
structure real
Can't,
quick.
can't hear you at home, Greg. Sorry, can't hear
Oh,
you.
Sorry.
Thanks.
What I was trying to say was, special permit will help control those neighborhoods that everybody so likes. You don't wanna just get a 5-story building right next to a 1-story structure. You want it to fit within the area. By having special permit, you have a little bite of the apple to what happens there, how many stories, and if it fits the neighborhood. And I think that's a huge, piece of the puzzle that you can't let go.
But if
That's all.
it's zoned by right, those single-family houses were put in the zone where they probably didn't belong, but the town, in fact, approved that zone. So those people are coming in with these developments, they expect it, they go by the book, and they say, well, geez, we can do this, and this, but yeah, we need a special permit. And that's where the crack comes in. I'm just telling you,
I think-
No,
I
no,
think
I
we-
get it, yeah.
I think you both have valid points here, and that's the tricky part, right? That's why we have to be able to talk about it and discuss it
Well,
and
I
come up.
think that could I comment too, that I think the special permit issue is a whole nother subject, where maybe reviewing those uses that require a special permit is a whole nother subject, because some that might require special permits just simply don't need it. But there are uses that probably do require a special permit, and perhaps an applicant coming in that submits a plan or, something that requires a special permit, if it was a complete application that met all the requirements for a special permit and it was very cut and dry, the process would go very smoothly and very quickly. But when you have a special permit application that isn't cut and dry, sometimes the process does take a little longer to make sure all the application is, qualified and complete and reviewed and processed, and all the appropriate people review, such as traffic engineers, or, if there's wetlands issues. Things do take time. It's not going to be rubber stamped. So, that's just the way of doing things sometimes, but you will have projects that go quickly. And it's not a matter of fact that they're going to go to Bellingham because they have to do a special permit, because they're not going to get something handed to them. So I think that the special permit criteria can be reviewed for certain uses, but there are applicants, if they want to put things in the correct way, they'll get their permits.
I agree with Beth.
You would?
You do? Okay.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you, Beth. I think Jamie has one more comment, and then I think we need to wrap it up.
Through you, Madam Chair, this is the discussion that has to continue.
Yes.
This is it right here, about special permits by right. To Kobe's point earlier, visualize what it is you want, incentivize that by right or through financial incentives, depending on commercial, resident, whatever the dynamic is, and maybe make it more difficult on a special permit for things that are unique or that maybe don't fit in perfectly. But this discussion between Bruce and Greg and Beth and everybody on special, this is what we hear about a lot at
Yep.
the staff level. And I just wanted to point out, this is the kind of meaty discussion, I think, that has to take place in the weeks and months after we get the report and we have digested it and we've seen the recommendations and talked about it. These are ultimately the very, very difficult, very complicated discussions that have to happen, which is very difficult for the public, as we all know, because it is a lot of expertise that goes into knowing this stuff. But making those decisions is really probably, especially on special permits, probably one of the key things to this whole process. And so I liked it, so I had to point it out, that I like this debate, because this is,
Yeah.
and this is
Yeah.
also why we have the people on the board that we have. These are the folks that know this stuff really, really well, and experienced it and been through it for decades. And I just hope we can have more conversations like this, in the future after the next forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. I mean, this is exactly why I wanted to do this today. So thank you all for being candid we need to know everyone's opinion so we can sort through what happens. It'll be very interesting, I think, when we're at that forum, when we get to see some of the recommendations, maybe some modeling would be really nice. And with that, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. I'm going to do a roll call vote. Werling,
Yes.
Rondo,
Yes.
Hunchard,
Yes.
Sheridan,
Yes.
Frangillo,
Yes.
Jones, Chair, yes. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thanks, Al.
Sorry, you walked in and we're all leaving.